everyone. This is Raphael.
And I'm Loryn.
We're the Pacheco siblings, and welcome to the Hypercube podcast, a talk show in which two siblings converse about anything and everything. Hey, what's up?
How are you doing?
I'm doing good overall. Definitely. Yeah. Life's still crazy. But we've also, it's just been relaxing to talk for a bit, and we keep forgetting to record, so we better get this going. That's the problem.
We had like 3 different full podcast episodes recorded while we weren't recording. We just went through so much material that was so good.
Yeah.
If not a little controversial, but...
A little controversial, which is probably why I think we weren't recording.
Unfortunately.
We're a little hesitant to record, but definitely.
At least to put it up on this platform. I think we need a different platform. We can do that podcaster thing where we're like, oh yeah, this is unfiltered, straight from the dome. This is how I really think about how the world works and everything like that. And it's like milquetoast opinions.
I mean, technically there's nothing stopping us from turning this into that, but I get what you mean.
Yeah.
It feels a little bit too flagship. But
yeah, exactly.
Either way, yeah, we wanted to dive into a topic now that you had been kind of saving for a while. This was originally intended for the first season, but you think you were saying this was a good follow-up to the last episode we did on Conditioned for Excellence.
I do think this would be a decent follow-up because
I'm very curious.
It kind of follows that same theme of overwork, let's say, like workaholicism, or being somebody who pushes themselves far too much, right? And I want to talk about an individual who personifies that, I think, to the greatest extent. And that is Ronnie Coleman. If you don't know who that is, look him up. He is a massive bodybuilder and just a very, very strange looking human being from a proportion standpoint. It's crazy. Ronnie Coleman is, well, first of all, he's won all the awards, every single thing that you can do, I think, for bodybuilding. He's won it. I think he's done Mr. Olympia, a record-breaking 8 times in a row.
Dang.
8 years, he was on top. Nobody else came even close. It got to the point where I think they told him to stop getting bigger because he was so freakishly huge, he was making the other bodybuilders look small.
Oh my goodness.
Like, that's the level this guy was working at, right? Literally next level.
Right.
So anyways, I want to talk about this guy. I want to talk about this guy a little bit.
So apparently, he's a pretty interesting dude, and he had a lot to say about him and about
I have so much to say about him.
History. But I think the subtitle you're kind of proposing for this was like what it takes to be the best or something to that effect.
What it takes to be the best. What it takes to be the man to win Mr. Olympia 8 times in a row from 1998 to 2005.
Wow. That's a lot.
Which I think is still unbroken. I think that's still an unbroken streak.
That's a bit of a feat for sure. Considering that is like the most major competition in its sport, right? If you consider bodybuilding as a whole. Well, I mean, I guess there's the Arnold's? Is that another major one? Or the
Yes, the Arnold and Mr. Olympia. I'm not sure what the difference is, but yeah.
I think Mr. Olympia is just older because I'm pretty sure Arnold was competing in that back in his heyday. So
yeah, exactly. Mr. Olympia was what Arnold was winning, and then he retired and was like, I'm going to give people medals.
Well, yeah, I think he got used to it after being a governor for a while. What's this dude's deal?
What it takes to be the best. So this man was a machine, an absolute unit, a unit of a man, right? Mm-hmm. I remember hearing this anecdote. Don't know who the bodybuilder was, but they were saying they're at a competition. Ronnie's in the back, and apparently he's constantly eating because you just have to. So he's chowing down on something, right? he's just munching.
He needs mass,
probably on a chicken breast and some broccoli with some rice. And he was like, "Hey, Ronnie, you're constantly eating, right?" He's like, "Yeah. What do you do on like your cheat days?" And I have this idea in my head of like the way Ronnie looks at him, mouthful of chicken, just staring at him. And he was like, "I don't do cheat days ever." Like, he's never fallen off of his diet in the entire time that he was competing.
Wow. Ever.
Like, at all. Like not even like he doesn't have an off season. He has an on season and a maintenance season.
Dang.
So it was like, that's blew my mind. Like, just listening to this dude talk. Huge man. I was like, surely this guy indulges himself in like some donuts and some chocolate cake every now and then, especially because he started off as a police officer. You know, he's chomped on some donuts. But once he started competing, he was like, no, this is what I'm doing. I am competing and I am winning. And he did. He won. He won everything.
Repeatedly,
consistently.
So yeah, I mean, I guess that's the question. It's just like, how do you get there? Like what?
Yeah.
I mean, because like,
so
this wasn't like just like a decision he made one day, I'm assuming, as like a spur of the moment thing. Just like, you know what, I think I'd be a pretty good bodybuilder.
No, it was.
Was it?
It definitely was. And I don't understand some people. Just in general, I just don't understand. But
generally speaking,
like Ronnie Coleman is on a whole nother level of it. Just, I don't understand this human being. I don't understand how he works, right? Because he literally fell into this by accident. He started off in, I think he was in high school. He was playing football, and I think he did powerlifting. And so he has a strength background. He did lifting, he did all that kind of stuff, and he was already a pretty big man in high school. I think he's like a linebacker or something like that. I don't know. He was big. He had physique. You know, just like those naturally big high schoolers that you come across every now and then. Mm-hmm. After he gets out, he decides he needs a career. He needs a job. He goes to college, gets his degree in accounting.
What?
Freaking accounting.
Why?
Because that's what you do, right? That's what you do. You leave high school, you go to college, right? You get your degree.
That's true. There's definitely a lot of people that you could look at that have some degree of, let's call it celebrity or you know, notoriety, that like if you look in their background, they have like a degree in like a random thing that is not even relevant.
That was clearly
to their
first.
That is clearly just a result of the fact of like the system that our society works in, right? Where like if you want to be successful, it's like that's just the path you take, right? For a lot of generations, we're getting kind of away from that now, and perhaps you know in some cases for the best, but it's not, I wouldn't say all cases for sure, but in some cases for the best. But that was just like the path to success that was prescribed. And so that was just what you did. And if you didn't know what you were going to do, you just pick something. And
you just pick something, you get a degree in it, you get a job, and that's what you do for the rest of your life.
Yep. You just fall into it.
So this man could have become an accountant in another life. That's mind blowing, right? I mean, he's mind blowing a lot because this man is mind blowing. I can't put it into words. You just have to look at him to really understand what I'm talking about. Just gaze upon him for a moment. Just pull him up on Google, like literally right now.
I was looking at pictures while we were having this conversation just to get myself into the right mindset of like, what is the mental image of this dude?
Yeah, sculpted. So that's what he was good at. He tried to do the whole career thing, find a job in accounting. Didn't work out. Couldn't find any work. I think he ended up working in like Domino's, just making pizzas or something. And then he sees an ad in the newspaper, literally just an ad in the newspaper for the local police department saying they're looking for police officers, no experience necessary. He saw the words, no experience necessary, and was like, perfect. That's me.
Wow.
Became a police officer. And you can still find photos of him as a police officer because he was competing for a little bit. I'll get into that later. But like this dude in the police officer's uniform, it's so small on him. He makes it look, he almost looks like the stripper version of a police officer. Like he barely fits into this thing because he's just so rippled and jacked. And it's like, it's a normal sized officer, a normal sized uniform. It's just the guy is so big, he doesn't fit into it.
That was like the biggest one they have.
Yeah, like he might have had to get a custom. Who knows? He becomes a police officer. One of the guys he's working with was like, "Hey, you're a big man. You should do bodybuilding." And he was like, "What? Bodybuilding? That's like, I don't know about that." And it was like, "Hey, look, I go down to this gym, right? There's this gym here that we have, and I don't know if he ran the gym or if he just went to it, but it was like, you go to that gym, and the guy who runs it, I don't know if these are the same people, because like the guy who runs it talks to him and is like, "Hey, you're a big man, right? Have you ever tried competing in bodybuilding? Because if you did, I would sponsor you. Come to the gym for free. Under the only condition is that you join bodybuilding competition. I think some local one." He's like, "Okay, sure. I need to go to the gym." He's still a big man. He does powerlifting. That's his thing. Powerlifting at the moment. Switches over to bodybuilding, joins a competition.
So he was powerlifting first.
Yeah, powerlifter. The three main lifts. It was like, what's a dead, squat, and bench. Mm-hmm. So he is already very strong. And then he goes into bodybuilding, isolated movements, lots of very small working on muscle groups type of thing, right?
Right.
The problem is he never stopped becoming a power lifter.
Oh, so he's strong and ripped.
I think it's not official in any capacity, but I think it's well regarded that he's the strongest bodybuilder to compete because he was not only physically massive, he was setting like records in his gym for lifts, which is, it's obviously if you have muscle mass, you're going to lift heavy, but this dude was lifting heavy. He was lifting really heavy. Like he didn't need to be lifting that heavy, but that was just the mindset he was in. He was like, yeah, you want to get big, you got to lift big. I think he would say this thing where it's just like, he had this quote. It's like, everybody wants to be a bodybuilder, but don't nobody want to lift no damn weights. Or no, I think he specifically says like some heavy ass weights.
Right.
And it's like, he was lifting way heavier than he needed to be and getting results out of it, right? So he was,
right.
So he goes. He's at this moment he's working for the police department, going to the gym for free, joins a competition. And he was like, I don't know if this is me. I don't know if I want to do this. Wins the competition
on a whim.
Just on a whim. Like literally, he didn't even want to do it. The guy who was running the gym was like, you want to come to this gym for free? Join this competition. It's the only thing you got to do. You come here for free.
Right. It was just his meal ticket.
Yeah. It was like, heck yeah, go to the gym for free. Because he was struggling at that point. Like he didn't have any money to go to the gym. Right. Joins the bodybuilding competition, wins. And so he's like, you know what? I think I might have a future in this.
Just casually.
He then proceeds to win 8 Mr. Olympias.
Right. Yeah. That's after he started trying.
Yeah, and that's after he started trying. So he stops becoming a police officer, goes to the gym, finally full time, puts his actual effort into it, and wins Mr. Olympia.
Wow. Yeah, insane.
That's it. That's the kind of like just natural talent you can't manufacture that. I don't know what exactly was in his like background or what his home life was like or anything, but you can't manufacture that kind of just natural talent. That there was something that this man was born with. Obviously, there's really good genes involved if he was already huge in high school. But man, the amount of like dedication and effort he had to bodybuilding, unprecedented.
Wow, yeah.
So that's the introduction to Ronnie Coleman.
So that's his story.
Because now, what it takes to be the best. I've talked about what it took to get him to be the best, right? But the thing is, being the best, like actually the best, like nobody has beaten him. Like he's the record of consecutive Mr. Olympia titles, I think he still holds it. What that takes and what the payment of your soul for that kind of success and dedication, like what you have to give what parts of yourself you have to give up to become that is what I want to talk about now.
Oh.
Because if you look at Ronnie Coleman now, it's kind of sad.
Oh, really?
At some point, probably like his 3rd or 4th Mr. Olympia, I'm not sure. He broke his back. Real bad.
Oh, dang.
Broke his back. I think he was doing a lift or something happened, or I don't know if it was in the gym or if it was just a complete separate accident. Like, I don't know, it could have been like a motor vehicle accident, which happens, right? Mm-hmm. I don't remember exactly. He broke his back. He didn't know that he broke his back.
Wait, what?
He still competed and continued to train with a broken back for years.
Wait, how do you not know if you broke your back?
I think after a certain point of lifting weights, you just go, a little bit of pain's normal.
No pain, no gain, I guess.
No pain, no gain. And he was continuing to lift extremely heavy weights with a broken back. And it was just getting worse and worse and worse. And he was like, I think he was like on just this cocktail of painkillers to be able to get to competitions, right? It got to the point where it was like, okay, fine, I'm gonna go to the doc. I literally can't get out of the bed. Get an x-ray. Your back's broken, dude. I think like it got to the point where like his discs had degenerated so much that his spine was fusing, or like something along those lines. Like it was bad. It was really, really bad. The amount of abuse his body was going through had just destroyed his spine. I'm pretty sure his spine just gave up at a certain point. It was just like, you know what? Go on without me. You can do it. And so he was like, no, I have this injury, obviously, but I need to keep competing. Like I've got a competition coming up. And they're like, you can't continue to compete. You have a broken spine. Your back is literally broke.
Yeah. Isn't that like, that's literally, I say literally, that is a metaphor for like as bad as it gets.
Yeah.
You broke your back.
Yeah. This is backbreaking work.
Yeah. Literally.
And so they're like, okay, look, if you're going to continue to train, like, you got to keep it light, right? Because you don't want to continue to do any damage. And he was like, okay, fine. I got a doctor's note saying I continue to train, and he starts lifting heavy again. Literally the week after, I think it was like he started doing like heavy squats, big weights on his shoulders, squatting deep. And I'm like, this he won Miss Olympia off that, so I guess it works. And he continued to train, right? Once he finally retired, he got surgery. I think. I don't know if he got surgery during his competition.
You think?
I think it took him retiring to get surgery. And it was so bad, they had to surgically fuse his lower spine together. Like, it couldn't hold itself. So his entire lower spine, actually, I don't even know if it's entire lower spine. It might be his entire spine. Like, his entire, like, from neck down might be fused.
Oh, man.
And yeah, he can't move. Like, he can't rotate his body. He can't, like... He can't even walk unassisted. He requires walking assistance, like either crutches or like walking things to be able to move around. Mobility assistance. And you know what? He's still training.
Really?
He is still lifting heavy, and he can't move. He literally can't walk.
No kidding.
Yeah, and like apparently he's got like an Instagram that he's like keeping up with, and people are like, yeah, because he's such an icon, right? And people just want to know what that's like, and he's like. Apparently, just like the nicest guy, constantly optimistic. His health is, I'm pretty sure, just getting worse. And he's like, yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Can't complain. Can't move, but it is what it is.
Wow.
And but my message is that's what it takes to be the best.
Well, it's just sacrificing your body in this case.
Yeah. Like, if that's the level of dedication, that is an unhealthy and unachievable level of dedication to become the best. If you wanted to do what Ronnie Coleman did, you will probably die before you did. I don't know how he isn't dead, right? Like, there could have been any number of moments where he's just like put like 400 pounds on his back, stepped out wrong, slipped it inside of his shoe for a little bit, little turn. There he goes. Paralyzed from the waist down, right?
Yeah.
But it didn't happen. Sheer luck. I'm fairly certain that he's not like completely bedridden and incapacitated, or just raw constitution.
Yeah, sheer willpower holding him together.
Sheer willpower is what kept his body together, because it wasn't his body. His body wasn't keeping itself together. That's for sure.
Right. He didn't have a spine.
He didn't even have a spine for half his career. Yeah.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and I've been thinking to myself, it's like, obviously I'm not on that level. Clearly, right. My body is still fine. I can still,
for the most part,
bend over. I can touch my toes. For the most part, I did break my leg earlier this year, which is a fascinating story. Maybe I'll tell on a podcast at a different point. But yeah, I mean, I'm still functional. Like I didn't break my leg. It was a dislocation. I'm fairly certain the only reason my leg didn't break is because I don't have this confirmed. I think I do have a kind of low level hypermobility, which is just the fact that my joints might be able to move more than the average person. Like my tendons are more flexible than they should be. Like I can do things like,
yeah, I believe that.
Yeah. Like, well, it's not just like, it doesn't necessarily result in natural flexibility, which I do happen to also be naturally flexible. It just means that I can, at my best, like if I were like perfectly flexible, my spine wouldn't be physically in the way of me moving around. Right. I'm not at a contortionist level, because that's extreme hypermobility is contortionists being able to do full back bends and sitting on their own heads, right? Because your spine only can go a certain point before it breaks. Their spines don't break, they bend. The tendons that hold them between are more flexible. I'm pretty sure that's the only reason why my leg didn't break, because when I looked down at my leg, it wasn't at a full right angle, but it was bad.
It was just like, it's not supposed to bend that way.
No.
Well, I mean, it's been a good long while since you had a good injury.
Yeah. So I'll say, and I'm mostly 100% recovered now. Like I've been working out again. I have to do a full deep ass to grass squat. And it's like, yeah, I couldn't do that like 2 months ago because swollen knee. I literally couldn't bend my knee past 90 degrees for like 3 months. It was very painful. Not the same level nearly as Ronnie Coleman.
Yeah. Whole different beast.
But I feel like that's something that I've noticed is like a requirement, is in order to be the best, there is a sacrifice you have to make. There is a willingness and a drive to push yourself past not just uncomfortability, but past your limit, breaking your limit to be able to become the best, right?
Yeah, because it's like, those are like human limits, you know, in a way. There's a certain extent, at least. And yeah, I guess that gets, as a theme, kind of gets into an interesting conversation. Because it makes me wonder, I guess, here's a more personal question, I suppose, is, do you feel a need to be the best? Like, when you like look at someone like a Ronnie Coleman, right? Is that something that, like, their achievement is no doubt monumental, and we can name a few people like that, you know, whether in athletics or other arenas.
Yeah, I just happened to pick Ronnie Coleman for this example, but there's anybody else I could have picked.
This is a case study.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah, this is just one specific case study.
This is like a very extreme example.
Do you look at someone like that and say, like, that's like, is that something that appeals to you, that achievement, right? Is that something that you feel is a need, a drive within you to be able to accomplish that? Or is it like, are you satisfied with less than the best? And
here's the problem.
You know, how would you kind of define the difference?
That's good. That's a very good question. That's a very good interview question. And here's the problem I think that I have. I don't think I have a drive to be the best. Like, I don't feel like I'm like, you know what? I need to be number one. I need to be like, no, here's what it is. I don't have a drive to be better than everybody else, right? That's not the way that I think about it. It's not like I need to be number one in the competition, and there needs to be somebody who's number two who's under me, right? Like, I don't feel like I have the need to be.
Certainly people that are wired that way.
Exactly. And who need to be on top, right? And I don't have that drive. The drive that I have, the way that I would word it, is I would not be satisfied not doing my best. But my best, I don't know how to put this. I would not be satisfied not putting 110% in, because 100% would be my best.
I see. Yeah. So it's not necessarily like an ideal of like being the best, but being your best and more. But there's still that element of limit breaking there, of going beyond your 100%.
Yeah, because 100% is literally the best you can do.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'd be satisfied with that. Like, I feel like
just stopping there,
getting to that point, and it's like, all right, I've plateaued. Now what? Well, I guess I just stop, continue at this level for a little bit. It's like, no. I got to keep going. I feel like once I hit what I feel like my plateau should be, that I don't feel like I would be comfortable maintaining that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you know you made it there. And it's just like, well, what's next?
Like, if I could do this, what else could I do? It's like, well, no. You're at 100. You're at the max. You're done. You did it. It's like, yeah, but if I did this, what else could I do?
Yeah. Kind of reminds me of something that Bruce Lee once said, which I guess is another person who's like, you know, in a way, in light of these themes, right? Conditioned for excellence, or,
right.
You know, a prime example also of what it takes to be the best, right? Certainly at great cost to his personal health, but
very much so.
I think it reminds me of something that he said, right? Which is, you know, there are no limits, only plateaus, and you mustn't stay there. You must go beyond them. So it's like, yeah, there are plateaus, but it's just like, apparently even plateaus were meant to be overcome in his mindset, right?
Exactly.
So that's kind of this, I guess, intensity, this personal intensity that some people have. And that's something that I guess I'm kind of wrestling with, is like whether I actually do have that primal need to be the best, right? Is that like something that is a need for me? And I don't know. I think I'm kind of ultimately in the same boat as you, where I don't know if I like to define it by those terms, because it's a little bit too comparative of an adjective. There is certainly something there, right? Where it's like, I do agree that there is an extent to which I want to see the best version of myself in the, you know, and I know, I guess for me, it gets kind of interesting though, from a worldview perspective, because theologically, I know I can't, I won't, at least not in this lifetime, not in this body, because this is not a perfect body. And in my worldview, there are perfect bodies that will come much later, you know, when all of reality is restored. But it's right. So I have this inherent understanding of the limits, right, of like the limitations of humanity, that it's in fact a constant tension of the Christian worldview, right? Is that humans are simultaneously like beautiful and broken. And so I have this constant awareness of the limitations, but also the possibility that humans are capable of extraordinary things. And it's kind of, I guess, this kind of fascination at the very least, maybe not a fixation, but a fascination with that kind of potential. And at least wanted to see how much of it I can achieve in every department, right? Like physically, intellectually, and in every other regard, right? Even like with regard to just character and wisdom, and also just finding where those limits are and how far you can push them. But yeah, I think over time, as I've kind of reevaluated my value structures, kind of realizing that there is more to life than just our output, it is kind of reset those priorities a bit, because it's like there's definitely like I said, a fascination and a curiosity there, but the cost of it, I increasingly realize, is something that you're not the only person who pays for, right? Because you're no person's an island. You're a web of relationships and all these other things and people who care about you. And it's like, at what point is that cost worth it for them, right? Because it's like, even if I was willing to pay it, right, would I want to put another person through that?
Right.
Would I want to put my family through that, or what have you? So, right, those are kind of the new evaluations I do of them. And I still find in myself in a drive to try and be the best version of myself, but I try to also observe the limitations of like what is the most, like,
temperate.
Yeah, basically temperate, of like what is the most healthy version of that I can achieve. Because it's inherently, because of the fact that it inherently requires personal sacrifice, that's not entirely, like I said, a decision that affects only you. And so there is an extent to which it should be tempered, because that then becomes like a different kind of sacrifice, right? It's like, I'm sacrificing my own desires of perhaps the unhealthy extent that I want to push, which is like, oftentimes just a temptation or a desire. It's like I'm sacrificing that for the sake of others that are around me.
Yeah. And I think that comes down to like the main difference between our worldviews, basically, right? Is your understanding of this lifetime is that even if you do the best you can now, there's going to be something later that's going to overshadow it, right?
Yeah, in a sense.
And then in my worldview, it's less so that there's something later that's going to come that's going to overshadow it, and more that is going to be a reflection of how good you did now.
Yeah. I see what you mean.
So it's like, so it's like, for me, I want to get the most out of what I can in this current moment, so that later, once I'm long gone, I will still have that impact, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And in a sense, I think that's not necessarily to devalue the present moment, I suppose, even in my worldview, right? I think what happens now matters. I think what we do with our lives and with our bodies matters now. And I think it will matter. And I think there is an extent to which I would agree with that sentiment that, whatever, let's use an abstract term, right? This is a theological term, but I think it could be abstracted, but like glorification, right? To come.
Right. Of course.
Right. That term can be abstracted. Let's call it that. Right. That is in some sense a reflection of what is present, right? Like what is present still matters. Right. Because to say the opposite might be actually very popular in a lot of religious circles, even within Christian circles, but that ultimately falls into a rather Gnostic worldview, which is technically like one of the earliest heresies, even if it is quite popular in a lot of modern religion. And I don't ultimately believe in a Gnostic view, right? I don't believe that the material is unimportant, right? I believe that our lives matter, and that what we do with our bodies matter. I believe that this world does still matter, even if it's not, the perfect that is to come, but it does free you from the impulse of making perfection your responsibility, knowing that there is a greater to come.
Right.
But that's not an excuse for not being all that you can be now. But again, also while realizing that the most that I can be might not be the best for everybody, right? That might not be the best net gain. And I think those are the kind of weird balances that I kind of try and strike.
Yeah, no, I get you. And it's like, I guess a lot of it comes down to the fact that for the longest time, and I think you have this similar experience. Maybe this might be something we cut out if this is too personal. But like for the longest time, I was confident that I was going to like be alone for the rest of my life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of that drive comes from the fact that I had that freedom to go at it like 100%, right? Like I could, like if I wanted to, go out and become like a monk, like in the middle,
right.
Just
go all monastic.
Monk like dedication, just go full, I don't know, whatever mode that I would have been at the time, knowing that there would be minimal fallout, minimal
like consequences,
casualties of that drive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think you're right, because now that I have a partner, there is a lot of consideration of the things that I'm doing are affecting them. Especially when I set up like earlier, I broke my leg or dislocated my leg earlier this year. I was out of work for a long time, and I just felt like garbage because I'm like, man, I literally can't do anything. I can't walk. I can't stand. I'm sitting here in bed recovering, and I could be helping, but I can't anymore, right? Like if like there's somebody who is depending on me being a functional human being with two legs. Right. I've only got one of those things now. So like I get, I'm still, I don't know where I am on that because that drive is still there.
I feel like we're both in a period of flux, right?
Yeah.
Where we're kind of having to, like I said, reevaluate our previous perspectives on, dare I use the lofty word, greatness, right? Like I think there's ideals about greatness that are perhaps typical of younger people that, I think we may be growing out of, or at least having to reevaluate. But I think that's, it's definitely a very fascinating time of transition. And I think it's really just kind of learning things that like people really at all times have to eventually discover, right, throughout all of history, which is what your limits are and what like do you actually want. But I definitely relate to that. I think a large part of that drive was a part of that, I guess, born out of that unhealthy suspicion, right? Like that I would also be alone for the rest of my life, and that there was nothing left but the optimization,
right?
And
focusing on yourself, turning inwards.
Yeah, which I think there is a healthy extent of that, right? Where because like singleness is a huge asset that I think is undervalued in our society, right?
Yeah,
I think we definitely live in a society. And perhaps this is getting a little off topic, perhaps, but this is definitely a strong opinion I've had and still maintain, even just coming from that history, is that we live in a society that like highly devalues singleness, right? Like,
for sure,
dehumanizes it to a certain extent, right? Like,
really?
If you're not, like, especially,
it's like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, exactly, right. And that's like a worldly thing that I feel like is also very present in a lot of church circles, unfortunately. Is the like. Is basically, like the kind of
just get married as soon as you can.
Not necessarily demonization. But like there's certainly a level of glorification of marriage that is, definitely not healthy and definitely not great for them. Yeah, that is, because not to say that it's a bad thing, but it's definitely not something that makes you a more valuable person than you were before. Right. Like exactly. That's not where your value comes from. And I think we as a society in general, I'll point fingers, especially at the church, since that's kind of more also my world, but we've just done a poor job of communicating individual value. And I think there is an extent to which, that is a valuable freedom to have, to be able to work on yourself. And because there are a lot of those freedoms that you lose when you enter into a different relational dynamic that makes demands of you. And rightfully so. And so that's a very different dynamic. And I feel like that ability to work on yourself and having the freedom to do that is actually something that can produce value that we don't talk about often. But so that's kind of like a tangled mess though, but because there is an obsessive extent, I suppose, to which that can be taken out of proportion. In the pursuit of a perfection, which is always like a kind of vain and ultimately trivial pursuit. But that's a fascinating conversation. I guess that's where my thoughts kind of gravitate when I hear about stories like this, right? And people like Ronnie Coleman. And it kind of reminds me also of just I mean, like you said, this was just a case study. You could have picked a number of people. I'm thinking even like within the athletic world, you've told me a lot about the kinds of revolutions that are happening, say in the strongman world, right? Where the heaviest weights ever lifted have been lifted within
the last few years. Yeah.
Within the last few years.
We broke the 1,000 kilos. I don't remember the measurements. I think it was 1,000 kilos.
Now you say we.
Humanity broke the 1,000 kilos deadlift barrier, right? And then it was broken several more times within the year following it. Or not, was it the year? No, I don't think it was a year. I think it was a couple of years after that.
Yeah.
I don't remember the timelines for it. But yeah, like it happened, then it happens again, and then it happens again with increasing frequency. Same thing with a mile, right? We saw that, I think it was in the 60s, the first person to run a 4-minute mile. Thought impossible. Literally, like, you can't do that. Human beings aren't capable of running that.
Until somebody did.
And then it happened again, and then again. And now high schoolers are breaking this record. High schoolers can run 4-minute miles.
Yeah. Yeah. A feat that was previously thought impossible until somebody did it once. But that's the thing is, as you've pointed out to me, the stories behind those athletes, like, what was it, Eddie Hall, who was the first one to do the 1,000 kilos? That's like, that comes at great personal cost, right? Like they were not able to do that without a tremendous amount of sacrifice to their well-being. That is like, to put it plainly, like just to their well-being. Like it was not healthy for them necessarily to pursue that.
It is not healthy for a person to lift 1,000 pounds, 1,000 kilos off the ground.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's just not a thing that you should just do. And so,
but we can. And
that is a level, right? A level of, again, to use that lofty term, greatness that can be achieved and was achieved, and yet at great personal cost. And I think it's really, I think a lot of people are ambitious, and I think it's a thing for every ambitious person to do, to evaluate those costs and to determine for yourself whether you think that's worth it, right? And that's ultimately something that's going to come down to personal decisions. But I think it's been an interesting opportunity for us to reflect on our own as we invite others to do the same. But yeah, I think that might be a good place to park it.
I think so. Yeah, because it's like it's just something to think about. The idea of the cost of greatness and the cost of being the best. In this case, is what I was kind of focusing on, being at the top of the game. What it takes, that sacrifice, that drive, how you have to fuel yourself to do that, and the kind of person it takes to have that drive in the first place. Yeah,
because that kind of success often behind the scenes or even in front of the scenes doesn't really look like what you think it looks like, right? It looks like pain.
It's pain, and it's hard, man. It's just hard. Like it's hard being the best. Obviously, that's not like it's not like a mind-blowing revelation of just like it's hard being the best. But like no. It's so difficult to be even good at anything. It
reminds me of that Martin Friedman quote you sent me recently.
He said it was a GQ interview where he was like, everything in life is easy unless you want to be good at it. That is really, really freaking hard.
And that's basically all there is to it. But I think that's what we have to say. Thank you all very much for listening. This has been the Hypercube podcast. This show is edited by Loryn Pacheco, mixed by Raphael Pacheco, with original theme music by Mono Memory. Until next time, we'll see y'all later. God bless.
Have a good rest of your afternoon. Lift heavy.
How do you know it's afternoon?
Probably. I don't know.